Mm.
Yo, yo, yo. Hello and welcome to the Lenko Show. This is episode number 120. I am your host, Alex Lankowski, and I'm here with Chris today. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Hello, everybody.
What a weird entry. What a weird intro. Anyway, very proud to say that once again, obviously, we are now sponsored by Dry Robe, helping you get changed, stay warm, and it is the number one coat keeping me warm on the sideline on a game day. So go and get your dry robes. Go and get your dry robes. Stops me from freezing and getting icicles on my nostrils and my toes. Uh,
Uh,
and I love it because, like, obviously, it fits over my pads, keeps me nice and warm, make sure I can still do my job.
what
Ideal.
was that plug? Helping you get changed, keeping you warm.
Yeah, that's their main strap line on the website. Get changed, stay warm. So, like, the idea of the dry robe, right? So, if you go off and do something extreme, and this might be useful for you a little further down the line, just alluding to what might come through the rest of the episode. But their big deal is that dry robe comes into play where the surf meets the sand, and the idea is that you can just pop your dry robe on and take your wetsuit off underneath, and you can get changed under your dry robe, keep them warm, and obviously provides you a little bit of privacy, stops everyone getting a pee, and yeah, they work. They do it. That is precisely the way they work, and it's what they do. Despite the fact you see people generally walking their dogs in them, I do the same because they're super toasty. It's like literally walking around having a permanent cuddle. It's really nice.
And a lot of people could use that even without the surfing and the sand.
It's honestly just a cuddle. Like I wore my dry robe in Sweden at the weekend, and like mainly just through the warm up. Like when I because there are periods where I'm sat down doing nothing, and it's very like my job is very intermittent anyway. So the option is you sit around and you get cold, or you're constantly walking around like looking for things to do. Sometimes it's nice to just sit down, relax, chill out, breathe, focus on the job, and keeping warm is a big part of that. So yeah, it's really nice. It's really cozy. So go and get your dry robes, folks. Get over to dryrobe.com and get yourself sorted out. Anyway, following on from the dry robe conversation, a little bit of a different thread. Like I said, it might be useful for you further down the line, Chris. You said in the last episode we recorded, which was all about how our training has changed over the years, things we wish we'd done differently, and maybe the things we felt like we've missed out on. You alluded to a little secret. You didn't want to spill the beans. You want to spill it this week? Care to tell us?
Yeah, if everyone behaves himself, I'll tell everyone.
Well, I mean, this is kind of what we're here for now, because if you don't tell us, then we can't really do the rest of the show because, like, your your secret is the main topic of conversation today. So let's go. Come on, get it out, spit it out, spit it out, boy.
So the secret is, people, I'm going to build this up with some tension first, or perceived tension. I am what we would call a 2B baby. Well, that's what I'd like to call myself anyway. A type 2B muscle fiber boy. 2B baby, which alludes to my background. Played a lot of football, but I was primarily strength, power, speed based athlete. I then went to CrossFit and I kind of, well, very heavily touched on this in the last podcast. I wanted to learn a lot of skills. I wanted to be physically fit, strong, capable, and durable as well, and resilient. And I wanted to be able to do all the crazy things that you see in CrossFit. I wanted to be able to do the high skills, but also have a high power output as well. I wanted to be fit and strong. I did a lot of Olympic weightlifting and I excelled at that. When it comes to the CrossFit side of things, I was very good at the gymnastics, very good at the weightlifting, contextually compared to people of my, let's say, skill level. And that was where I excelled in workouts and in competitions. And my actual conditioning was dog shit. I would say that. So my biggest limiting factor was my actual, let's say, conditioning slash endurance. I won a couple of competitions here and there, and got some good results, usually partnered ones because my partner was really good. No, I'm kidding. Because although my partners were really good, but generally speaking, stuff where I got some rest, some recovery, and then I could go again hard. So I thought, what is the weakest link in my chain? And well, I didn't actually think that because I already knew it. I need to work on that aspect. Now, I'm not going to get rid of CrossFit style training. I'm going to say style because I'm not going to go back into competing in CrossFit. I just like the idea of being able to train multiple um, faculties of fitness and still doing lots of crazy stuff and, training speed, agility, power, strength. And I like doing metcons. I do enjoy it, and I think that's something that I'm going to do long term. I often say to my clients, think about what you can do and what you want to be doing in the 10, 15 years time. And, that's ideally stuff that you want to be doing now. You want to be excelling at it now, keep doing. So for me, it was a no-brainer as to what I needed to work on in order to be as fit as I could be. And I also wanted to box a couple of things off in my lifetime. And the older you get, I know I'm certainly not old, but the older you get and the more responsibilities you have, the harder it is to do those things in theory, thinking about it. So I've decided to do it at this ripe old age. So this season, team, I'm going to be veering away from CrossFit. I'll be still be doing some jiu-jitsu stuff, but as of this month, I'll be training for a season of Ironman events. So it's October now. The idea is to start building volume over winter through running, cycling, and swimming. Then I will do a race around July and August, which it might not work out that time, but it'll be around that time, and it will be we were thinking maybe Lanzarote. So for anyone who's listening, I'm going to be working with Ben Aiken as my coach, who is the former Royal Marines Commando and now professional Ironman athlete. So he is definitely the man to help me with the job. Yeah, so we're aiming for sub 12 hours in Lanzarote. And then we will be doing one in Wales as like a main one, which will be like the end of the season sort of thing for me, where I'm going to aim for sub 11:30. Those are predicted thus far based on like before me doing anything. I will be sitting down with them again to go through what we're actually going to make the season look like. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be around 6 to 10 hours per week training to start with. And then towards the back end of the season, it's going to be 10 to 15 hours. It's most likely. But yeah, so the idea is I wanted to do a marathon. I wanted to do something big and difficult. And like I said in the previous episode, I touched on when I was a kid, I wanted to be an Olympic athlete. That potentially could still happen, but I've kind of closed the door on that and I'm looking at doing some bigger, difficult things. Ironman was one. I wanted to box off a marathon, and I decided at the age I'm at now, I'm only going to have more responsibilities in a couple of years' time. So to get the volume that I want to be aiming to do, because I don't want to just do it. That's the reason I'm going to do at least two. I'm going to do Lanzarote, because it's Lanzarote. It's supposed to be a harder one. It's supposed to be more difficult because it's hilly and it's obviously on the coast and it's breezy, but it's hilly as well. And that's going to be like a getting it done one. And then Wales towards the end of the season is getting head down and really, really being competitive with it and putting in my absolute best effort. So yeah, it's going to tick boxes for me. I wanted to do a marathon. I wanted to get one of those done, and I wanted to get an Ironman done. Truth be told, so I'm just going to do the marathon in the Ironman, and
Two,
it
two in one stone.
yeah, and it means I'm going to obviously get to work on swimming, which I've done swimming in CrossFit competitions before. I would say I'm an okay swimmer. But like I said, I want to have lots of tools in my arsenal. I want to be very strong, very fit, very capable. I'm good on a bike. I'm not the best runner. I'm okay at running, but those are things that I certainly want to work on. I want to work on the amount of time for which I can continue putting work in for, which, the other thing is as well is I know that with an Ironman or with something where you're doing such long distance and long amounts of time of work, you are going to look at a trade-off of losing muscle and losing strength because there will be a point where carrying a lot of muscle may eventually be a trade-off, and it's not actually doing any more favors for you because it's expensive. If I get to that stage, then obviously muscle will come off, but the intent is to maintain strength, I guess, like a hybrid athlete, like we spoke about last time. Maintain strength, maintain size. And like I said, I know it's not something I need to worry about right now. It's not something I am worried about, but the older I get, the harder it's going to be if I were to lose that to then start building that back on again. So it makes sense timings wise to me. And in terms of, like I said, like I alluded to, responsibilities and different things as I get older. So there it is. That's the secret. Ironman season. It is going to be two I'm going to commit to. One, which will be a let's go, let's have fun, let's do it. One is going to be a it's not about having fun. Like it's always about having fun to some degree, but the having fun is the let's fucking see what you've got. Let's show up. And then there'll be some other races tied in there as well. I think I might have been coaxed into doing a high rocks as well, which will
Hmm.
obviously be shorter distance and by that point a lot easier than doing the Ironman. So yeah, there we have it.
Very good. Episode number 56, by the way, is that chat that we had with Ben Aiken. It's been a while since we've had him on.
Need to get him back on. Yeah.
56. We'll have to get him back on and we'll quiz him
Right.
about your training and how much effort you're putting in. Um, but you've never done a triathlon either, have you?
No.
And you just decided let's just jump straight into the deep end.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, like, I've never done a marathon, but I've done an ultra marathon. So technically, I have done a marathon. But why did you go for the big one first? Like most people, like when they approach a challenge like this, it would be reasonable to start at an introductory level of, maybe let's just go and do a sprint triathlon or just a relatively short distance where you're doing all three disciplines, get good at swimming, cycling, running, etc. Why did you go for the big one straight away?
I feel like that's an obvious answer. Because it's the big one. Because it's the big one. For me, first of all, this is going to sound really big-headed. I wouldn't classify myself as a beginner athlete. And even though I definitely wouldn't say I'm a strong triathlete, let alone Ironman athlete, I trust that I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm capable, and I certainly don't mind getting my head down and getting stuck in to whatever I need to be doing. And I've got a really good coach as well. And it made no sense to me. Like I will be doing triathlons
Hmm.
going into it anyway. It made no sense to me to just do a triathlon because in my head, that's not challenging enough. I want something that's genuinely going to be tough. I remember the very first CrossFit competition I did was called Trinity War, and I did it with Chris Warren and Matt Dewhurst, and it was RX Elite Standard that I went in at, and I'd never done a WOD before, and we were in. This is actually like mad to think about. If anyone does CrossFit that's listening, I know a lot of your guys don't, but I was in the lane next to on day one. We were next to Reggie Fasser, Mikey Steele, and Sammy Cartwright, who are all quarterfinals athletes. And Reggie Fasser was the UK's fittest man after Zach George. I don't know if you know who he is. Um, like he won it after him, like very recently, and he was just a guy in the industry back then, and he won it. And he was in the lane next to me, and I remember we did a workout where it's actually a really funny story. It was 30 dumbbell grounds to overheads with a pair of 22.5 kilo dumbbells. And then you had to farmers carry them the width of a football pitch and back. Now, if you've ever done the 30 dumbbell grounds to overheads, your grip is fucked. It is and I don't mean like it's on fire, it's sore. I mean, you're struggling to even bend your fingers anymore because it's fried. It's absolutely fried because you're pulling them up and you're bringing them down. Anyway, Chris Warren, bless him, was going first, and Reggie takes off after he's 30, comes back, Waz has done his first 10 unbroken, puts him down, shakes his arms out. Reggie comes back, like as Wazza picks him back up. Mikey finishes his 10, Wazza does another five. He fucks off, comes back, and then Sammy does his 10 goes, comes back, they've all finished. And was like, oh fuck, I've not even got onto it yet. Because it hits you so soon. It's a really funny story. But yeah, we like that was straight in the deep end. That was actually supposed to be Zach George in that team, who some people might know him. He's one of the gladiators on the new Gladiator program. Um, so that was straight in the deep end, and I see it exactly the same as that. Like I don't mind. I think we came second to last in that competition. I don't mind. Like it doesn't bother me. I want something that's going to challenge me, and like that's the only thing that's going to drive me to actually do like the training and be disciplined with it and commit to it because in all honesty I'm fit enough and strong enough and comfortable enough with who I am to just carry on doing my own thing. So I need something that's more challenging that's going to pull me in further. And for me, yeah, I wanted to box off something way more difficult, something more extreme because it's something more, let's say, memorable. In
Mm,
my head, it's a bigger thing to celebrate. It's a bigger thing to commit to doing. It's training for a season. Whereas a triathlon, in theory, I could probably say I wouldn't smash one, but I could probably go and do one in a month's time. I could
yeah.
probably do one in 2 weeks time. Same for a marathon. I'm not saying they're easy. I know they're not easy. I know they're not. But I could probably just go and run a marathon. Not necessarily fast, but get one done.
Yeah.
But to me, what's the point? And I know that there'll be people out there who contextually might think that that sounds really difficult. They might think I sound like a knob, but there'll be some people out there who go, "Yeah, I get that. That's the same for me with such and such an event." Like you want to do the big thing that's going to pull you in. You have to work really hard towards it, rather than thing that just doesn't really excite you. Like an Ironman, I didn't just pick it randomly. The idea excites me. It's something that I would be proud of myself for doing. And I'm not saying that I'm not proud of myself, but it's something that I would happily aim towards and I would celebrate that. If I just finished a triathlon, to me, that would just be like, yeah, it's just another comp that I've done,
I
just
was
another
gonna
event.
I was gonna say I know you've used the word there that it excites you. Is the I was gonna say is there an element of fear or is there a little bit of it that scares you? And when I say that, I don't mean like you kind of sit there thinking about it and you go, "Ooh," and you're like petrified of it. But is there a bit where you think about it, you think about the scale of the challenge, and you kind of get that almost like a little bit of a lump in your throat, and your heart goes a little bit quicker, like the adrenaline kind of kicks in, and you think, like you use there the word excite. That's probably what you would actually use to describe that series of um, kind of events to the way it physiologically impacts you there and then in the moment when you're thinking about it. Because I remember when I was on the start line for my ultra marathon. It was probably the night before, actually, when I checked into the hotel and I was walking to my room and I was like, what's life going to be like if I don't finish this? And then I was like, oh, that, and the thought of that actually fucking terrified me. And then I went, that ain't fucking happening. Like, not a chance. I was like, 100%, I'm getting over the finish line and I'm dragging my client with me as well. Like, we're both getting it done. So yeah, is there an element of that about the Iron Man that isn't necessarily there when it comes to the triathlon?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the idea of the distance itself is fucking terrifying. Like, I don't think I've ever done anything for longer than 45 minutes in my life, let alone 45 minutes of just swimming and then probably another 45 minutes, maybe. You never know. So yeah, absolutely. The idea of just doing those distances is pretty, I'm gonna say scary. Like you said, it's not scary in the sense like it's really, really freaking me out or anything like that. Like it's exciting and I want to do it. But the idea that for me, I wouldn't classify myself as a strong endurance athlete. I wouldn't even classify myself as an endurance athlete, to be honest. So just one of those things on its own would be pretty impressive. And in fact, one of those things on its own is impressive. But why do one if you could do all three? Is the way that I see it. And you have to hit certain windows. Like I could go and do a triathlon, and kind of like I said for the first time, man, that I'm going to do, I could go and do a triathlon, and I could spend all day just trying to get through it, and that would still be just as impressive if you're spending the time trying to get through it. But I don't. I want to commit myself and work very, very hard throughout a season to produce something that you've actually trained towards, rather than just going and doing something. And like I said, for me, I'm the total opposite of what you would expect that athlete to look like and be, I guess. So it is the total opposite end of the spectrum for me.
I was going
But
to say, so I mean, we've kind of covered the aspects of it that is terrifying and the thoughts of it. What about what are the bits that really excite you? What are the things you're really looking forward to? Because I always think when you start a new skill, when you start a new kind of training method, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to, kind of bounce off everything. What are you hoping that you'll enjoy and gain from the process and the event itself?
I feel like that's a good question in the sense that my answer probably is slightly unorthodox. In For me, I think I mentioned this before. When I did Rain Hills, the last CrossFit comp I did, I lost all motivation for training.
Hmm.
I've honestly, I've not had it back since. Like genuinely, like I love doing my jiu-jitsu now, but I've just not wanted to train. And bear in mind, I've trained at the school gym at 14 years old, and then done at minimum probably 5 workouts a week for at least 10 years. Probably missed maybe 2 weeks or like weeks around Christmas and stuff like that every now and then, but otherwise, like been on it. Like I've had seasons where I've trained twice a day, and I've always been in love with training and moving and exercising and being healthy. And I've not had that since Rain Hills. And for me, the idea itself of I don't need to worry about whether or not I specifically enjoy it is enough for me to enjoy it. That sounds like almost, like a riddle, but because I know I'm working with a coach who's keeping me accountable, he's a fucking good coach, and I'm very, very lucky and grateful to be able to work with him. And it's single discipline in the sense that, my training's as simple as, yeah, I'll have some strength and conditioning to do, but sorry, strength work to do, but a lot of it's going to be putting hours in, hitting certain paces, cycling, swimming, running. It's not going to be this thing where you just zone out for 3 minutes and send it, and then your body feels like fucked in terms of your shoulders don't like being pulled here and all this jazz. It's the idea of doing all those things, which is weird because 5 years ago I would never have thought, oh yeah, I'd just like to run for like even half an hour. The idea of doing that would just be fucking boring to me. But now I see it as a good opportunity for me to be able to, I guess, switch off slash lock in.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? And I've
Yeah.
found that more and more difficult with doing CrossFit stuff because you're doing this and then you're doing that and then you're doing this and then you're doing that and you've got to pace this and blah blah blah. It's going to be, you know, work where my coach just goes, right, this is what the sessions are, this is what they're going to look like, this is what we need to do this week.
So you could have a bit more structure, a bit more plan, and you've got that direction that you're working towards. You've got that clarity and focus on your goal of like you've got those two events coming up. You've got the kind of the little play around one, which is going to be for a bit of fun and bit of an experience, get used to it. And then you've got the main one, your second one, kind of later on in the year, which is going to be the big one that you're actually really targeting. We're just like obviously that in itself is going to create a lot of motivation, a lot of drive to push and go through the process. Where do you think that motivation, desire, and enjoyment to train went after you did finish the Rain Hills trial?
I think I spent it all. I got to the point where I was I was already done with CrossFit purely because I was doing the amount of maintenance and recovery work I needed to be doing in order to keep up the actual training. was just too much for the life that I have and the lifestyle that I want. And I'd already committed to doing the competition. So it was a case of, you know what? I'm just gonna finish this out, train for it properly, keep doing what I can. And ultimately it, you know, broke my body to pieces. And I remember 2 days before, I just really couldn't be bothered doing it, and my body was absolutely fucked. Like it was in pieces. My shoulders have never been as bad. My back had never been, well, my back had been worse, but it was really, really bad. My knee was blown out, and I was just, and I didn't fancy it. I didn't fancy it psychologically,
Hmm.
but the pride of knowing those things and doing it on the day anyway carried me through. I remember after every event, I was like, I hope that's done now. And then I made it through and I got to the final and I was like, oh, I'd really rather not. And I was just psychologically, I was so out. I was so out. But at the same time, I was never going to just not do it or just
Yeah.
stop. And then obviously I went and did the final. Um, and obviously it paid off for me. But yeah, I was burnt out and I didn't really want to be doing it anymore. But I pushed myself and forced myself to do it. And I know that with this thing, this is one of those things where there's a very, very short amount of time in which I actually feel like I want to do it. I didn't want to do it 5 years ago. I ain't going to want to do it in 5 years' time, I don't think. Whereas right now, I feel, and I'm really, really lucky for this. I feel like, okay, this is the perfect time to be able to do the training in the way that I want to do it. I've got access to a really, really good coach. I've got access to a good swimming pool, like 2 minutes away from our gym, and everything's kind of fallen into place for me to be able to get this thing done. And you know, I'm in my head, I'm kind of very aware of the fact that it could end up, depending on how I go psychologically, just like what happened with Rain Hills. But for me, that would be fine because my plan is not to continue doing Ironmans. My idea is commit the one season. If I absolutely love it and I can't get enough of it, great. I'm winning. I can do more the following season. I can carry on training. If I'm done and I'm burnt out and I'm fried out, it's fine because I wasn't gonna carry on the next season anyway, originally as planned. It was this is the goal, this is what we do, we get this done, you've done it. It's one of those things that's been on my vision board for a couple of years, and it's always been, yeah, but I still want to get stronger here, and I still want to get my 120 kilo snatch and all these different things. And it's kind of been there in the background. I'm just like, yeah, we'll just put a picture over the top of that for now. So my point there is like, it's something that I feel like I'm fortunately really, really want to do right now. And I know that motivation's not going to stay. And there's definitely going to be days where I feel like, you know what, fuck this run today or fuck this cycle today or I can't be out swimming today. I know that's going to happen because that's just the way that it goes. But like I've said, I was my initial idea was to commit to a season. If I love it, great, I'm winning. If I don't love it, doesn't matter. I committed to the season and I did the season.
It's interesting that you've decided to commit to such a long, dreary training cycle through the depths of winter. Was that a tactical decision, or is that just the way that the timing's fallen? Like normally, like because we did the same thing with the DW canoe race that we were going to do before COVID,
Yeah.
where if there's ever a time to learn to canoe, kayak, row, do anything on water on a river for a long period of time, it's not in the depths of winter. Do it in the summer months where it's warm, it's dry, the air temperature is good, the water temperature, more importantly, is reasonable. Yeah, why did you decide? Like, at what point did you decide?
Well, there's two. The answer's kind of multifaceted to that one. First of all, I didn't technically decide that one. Ben said the best thing to do would be to start training around October, which is the start of the off season. So it's as this Ironman season finishes. That's when you build up your volume, and then you'll be ready to do like more specific stuff next season. But the other thing is, I always think of. Do you remember when we went on a run in Ramsbottom, which is where we're from? People listening, and me and you started a run, and we went up all the way up the back of where we used to live at Garnet Street, and it was a really hot day, and we were pretty dehydrated, and we ran up Holcombe Hill and back down, and there were people that as we were running past, We're like, you two must be crazy. And I remember you turned to me and was like, I fucking love that. That's what drives me. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, I always think, so this is what I was thinking in my head, and then you kind of said it. In my head, I was thinking, I like the idea, and this, don't get me wrong, this is an ego thing. I like the idea of thinking, you wouldn't do this, but I would, and I am,
Mm.
and that's why I am. And then you turned to me and you were like, that's what I kind of think of. Like when we think of Lenko HQ, I think of like making like the term Lenko like a verb. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Other people wouldn't do this, but we fucking would. So we're Lenkoing it. He said
yeah,
something along those lines. And that's what I think. That's what I think. I was like, when we did the kayak, I I hate cold water. I hate being cold. I don't like being cold. And yeah, in fact, let's go as far as saying I don't like water and I don't like being cold. So when you said it, I was like, for fuck's sakes, that would be the perfect way to get used to being cold and being in water. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like the thing to do.
yeah.
Like that's how you grow through it. Or if anything's going to stop me from being asked about being cold and being wet, it's probably doing a lot of shit in cold water.
I think the level to that is that you're never going to get comfortable with it. Oh well, you're never going to enjoy it, and I don't think you really should enjoy it. Like being cold and wet, will make cowards of pretty much anybody. But if you can increase your tolerance to it via exposure and just develop that little bit of grit and resilience to push through it, I think you'll be a lot stronger for it. And I do remember that little training run that we did where it was from the football pitches
Yeah.
all the way up. So, I mean, maybe 5K was it? If that, because
Yeah, I don't know if it was
it's
that
not,
far. It was just the incline.
yeah, it's not a long way, but it gets to the point where you are like, especially when you're going up towards the pub, that road, I remember being a kid, I was like, I could not pedal a bike up that thing. Like it was literally a case of it. The incline was that steep. I think was it above 45 degrees or something like that? It was way above that.
Yeah, it
But
had special signs on it to tell you it was steep, didn't
yeah,
it?
incredibly steep. Like, oh, right, like I needed a sign to tell me. Like, but look at the
Yeah.
bloody thing. Um, but yeah, that was a job of get off your bike and start walking. So, and because it was a baking hot day, and I always quite like that. I always like the sense of, when people look at you and think, "Are you crazy?" And my answer in my own head is like, "I know what you're thinking, and yes, I am." Like I like that. I actually enjoy that. I want people to think like the man's off like he's weird, because if you're doing normal things and you're doing the things that normal people do, where anyone can do it when the conditions are right and the circumstances are favorable, but can you do it when it's backs to the wall? Can you do it when it's grim? Can you do it when you're miserable? Can you do it when it's wet, cold, dark, windy, whatever it is? Like it. I mean, I was interested. I was talking with someone down at the when I did my dog trial with Axel. Um, I was talking with one of the dog trainers down there, world class dog trainer. Like, has taken his dog to the world championships on multiple occasions to represent. And he was talking about when his dog was a puppy. He used to wait for it, and it's well, he used to train it, go through the normal training stuff, and whenever it got cold, whenever it was really wet, or whenever it started raining, when he was a puppy, he'd take his dog out in the rain, training in the rain, get him used to it, get him like I think Ross Edgley talks about it in his books. It talks about it being get wintered. That's
Yeah.
when you go and do it. That's go and put the hard yards in, get used to it, make it normal to be in those situations to the
Yeah.
point where it's a non-factor. I always used to think that, and I can't remember this. I had a football match in primary school, and it started snowing. It started snowing really heavily, really thick, and it was more or less traveling sideways. It was tough conditions. And I turned around to someone on my team and I was like, just ignore it. And someone from the other school, I can't remember who it was, but he was like, ignore it. Are you thick? How can you ignore this? I was like, okay. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Just get on with it. Get on with the job. Get on with the game. Get on with the task. Do what you do. Like, and I always felt that when it rained, and this was weird, like whenever it rained, everyone else kind of got like, oh, I don't like being wet, I don't want it to rain. And I was like, oh fuck it, we're going now. Like slide tackle, 10 feet, like being on a slip and slide. I just really enjoyed it. I don't know, I felt like I got more out of myself when those conditions were bad.
Yeah, I think for me, like, and again, this is an ego-based thing. I know that, but I always wanted to be physically or feel, and I think we all want to feel physically, mentally, and emotionally capable. And that is exactly what it is. In those moments where you're running past someone up a steep hill and people are looking at you, going, fucking hell, you're crazy. You're thinking, I'm not, I'm capable of doing this. So I'm going to do it. Like, I train, I'm fit, I'm running uphill. That's it. That's all it is. It's not crazy at all. I'm capable of doing this. So I'm going to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that making me feel good.
Yeah. You
And
mentioned
that's the journey as well. It's like you're doing something to show that you can because you can. So for me, I see this as a celebration. Like it's going to be a hard task. I'm not this type of. Well, I shouldn't say things like that because I don't really mean I'm not this type of athlete. I know that you can train and develop these things, but it is the weaker link in my chain. So for me, it's going to be hugely experimental and developmental as a process as well. And I fucking love growth. I love challenge. It's a no-brainer in that sense.
I've got two questions for you. I'll just give them to you one at a time. The first one, and you've kind of alluded to this a little bit in terms of you're just going to judge it on how you feel, but what is the plan for afterwards? Are you eyeing up another sport, another challenge? Do you think you'll stick with Ironmans? Do you think you'll go back to CrossFit? Which one do you think is likely?
So my life plan is to be as fit and strong as possible. And I always want to fill in the weak links. So for me, being durable and endurant and resilient is the one that I think is a weak link for me. I will go back to doing CrossFit style training. I like doing metcons. I like doing strength work. I like doing weightlifting. I like doing gymnastics, and I like doing like barbell complexes and Murph and shit like that. And I like mixing it up as well. Like I really, really do enjoy that type of training, and I will be fitter. Yes, I will be conditioned specifically towards an Ironman. It might be a little bit harder to pick up a barbell, but I'm still going to be doing strength specific work throughout. So even if, yeah, my clean and jerk isn't as much and my snatch isn't as much, it doesn't matter because from that point, I've done the things that I wanted to do. And now it's a case of going back to looking after myself for what I want long term and I guess further down the line. So to answer your question, like I said, there's a chance I might fall in love with it and I want to carry on doing Ironmans and triathlons. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'll really, really enjoy the process. I won't want to commit to doing more, but I will probably do triathlons. I'll probably train my athletes to be able to do um like duathlons or triathlons or runs and go on those runs with them. And I'll still have like I'll be a well-rounded coach because obviously I'll do the fighting stuff with jiu-jitsu. I've got all the CrossFit background and weightlifting and gymnastics. I've done those things specifically. And then obviously I'll have the hybrid background of doing strength work and aerobic based work. Like, so the idea in my head is to go back to doing what we described as hybrid style training. Uh, but you never know. You never know. Things might change. I might decide when I get to
Okay,
the
cool.
end. When I get to the finish line, I might decide I never want to touch a pair of running shoes again.
I have thought of an extra question as well, but um, I'll do these as a two in one because they're both pretty similar. So, first off, what do you think is going to be the hardest part of training preparation event? And what's one aspect that you're most looking forward to with regards to the training preparation or the event itself? Hit both of those.
So the first one was what am
What do you
I
think? What do you
least
think? What do you think is going to be the hardest part? What do you think will be the biggest challenge for you personally, whether it's mental, physical, legit, even logistics, could be because I think this is something that a lot of people overlook whenever they take on a big challenge like this. Like everyone goes, "Oh, I want to do a triathlon." It's like, okay, well, have you got a bike? No, I haven't got a bike. Right, okay. What about a running watch? No, no, I'm not got a running watch either. What about if you're doing an open water thing, what about a wetsuit? No, I haven't got that. Like arranging all those different things, that's takes a bit of time and effort to get that right, getting your equipment set, making sure you've got everything you need for that. And then also psychologically, the toll of, organizing your training around your lifestyle. Like I mentioned to you, going out when it's cold, wet, dark, and windy, and you least feel like doing it. Balancing and getting all those things in place is tough. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. Is that something that you've considered? Is that something that you've thought about? Or have you just kind of thought, the physical aspect or like the swim is going to be the bit where you're going to really, have to grit through it? Because to be honest, I kind of find cycling quite, I don't want to say easy, but therapeutic, relaxing. You kind of just sit there and pedal. I feel like my legs are pretty strong, so I can kind of crack on with that. Running, again, just one foot in front of the other, keep ticking. But if you stop swimming, you're dead. Like and like for me, swimming is is a trick. Swimming's tough. Swimming's tough. If you're not conditioned to it, because that's probably the thing that I would have done least out of the other two disciplines. So, yeah, break it down. What do you think is going to be the most difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a financial strain if you've not already got the kit, but I've kind of got that accounted for with the people that I've got supporting me. The swim is going to be the thing that's going to be the hardest, and I'm thinking not the actual swim of the day. I'm thinking the swim training is going to be horrendous. Uh, I've done some pretty horrible swimming sessions before, and it's like you said, when you can't breathe, you can't breathe, and you can just pull your face out of the water. It's not always as simple as that when you're in training
Hmm.
sessions. You're no longer floating, and the lactic acid buildup um, is not my friend. I generate lactic acid quite quickly, and my swimming technique obviously is to be worked on. So that I feel like is going to be the hardest part. The initial getting used to doing longer swims or swim intervals, which are obviously just going to be painful. But I find, generally speaking, when I'm tired in swimming, because well, I was going to say because I'm more muscular. That's not the excuse. I'm not using that as an excuse. It's what I hear from swimming coaches that I worked with in the past.
You are quite
Like,
dense. You are the wrong shape for a swimmer. It's the same thing with Ross Edgley, but if he can do sort of a world record swim, I think you'll be okay.
exactly. But it's getting to that stage
Yeah.
of feeling comfortable and confident in the water again. And, I will have to tweak some things with my technique. My shoulders are still a bit stiff at the minute. And, whilst I've been working on them and helping them, it's going to do something to them. I don't know if you had that shoulder crack then by doing some freestyle swimming. And then the people that I've got around me that I know are very good swimmers, who I know would love to see me put through my paces. That's going to be an interesting one. Like you said, I feel like the wear and tear of the running and the cycling will be a lot. I know it will take a toll on the body, but I kind of know what I need to expect with those things. I've done a lot of running before. I've run long distances before. I've done a lot of cycling before. I've cycled long distances before. I haven't done a huge amount of swimming. I've done swimming in competitions before, but it was shorter distance. Longer distance swimming and swimming intervals are going to be really, really, really tough for me.
Hmm.
So that's the thing that I feel like I'll struggle the most. In terms of everything else, I know I'm going to be looked after. I know, obviously, I've got Ben at the helm, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows everything that I'm going to experience and go through. And like, I'm not going to be left thinking, shit, I need to get this sorted, or have I thought about this? All things will be catered for. Like, I know that for a fact. So I'm not overly worried about those. It is just more lifestyle wise. I know that's going to be demanding as well. It's one of the things that we went through. I wanted to make sure that I could I had the time available to be able to do it. It's again one of the reasons why I chose to do it this year rather than later in life because the responsibilities and things that I've got right now, it's at a peak where if I'm going to do it, it's going to work out best for me doing it now. And then further down the line, it would only be more and more difficult. So
Um,
I see it as kind of like an opportunity for me rather than a challenge, which is when you know that it's right. And that's when you know you're in the right headspace for it because you're seeing things that are barriers generally for most people. And I'm seeing as opportunities.
yeah, I like that. And we'll finish off on this next one, but what aspects are you most looking forward to?
Um, what aspects am I most looking forward to? I feel like one of the reasons that we chose Lanzarote is because it's going to be difficult, but it's also going to be beautiful. So that I will certainly look forward to being there. That as an experience will be class. The actual build up and the tension, the anxiety and the nerves beforehand. It's a long day. You, well, I mean, depending on where you're doing it, you're traveling out there the night before, or a couple of days before. You're prepping, and then one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is I've never been used to training on my own. And I know a lot of the hours are going to have to be done on my own. And I'm kind of looking forward to being able to do that because for me, that hasn't really worked out with weightlifting. And, at the gym that I'm in, the ProFit gym, we don't have machines. It's what we would deem as, functional barbell work and functional dumbbell work. And on my own, I've just not taken to it. Like I said, obviously burnout from Rain Hills, but for some reason with this, I'm looking forward to that time. And I know one of the other things as well is like there'll be times where I'll be able to run with Xena or cycle with Xena. And I think
For
it
anyone that
will,
doesn't know, Xena is your dog. There we go.
yes,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to open up avenues in my life as well, in the sense that sometimes I wake up on a Sunday morning, I'm thinking, you know what, I want to go and do a 5K or a 10K. Like I like being active
Hmm.
and I like being able to just go and do things. If I wanted to do that now, so generally we do a Sunday morning run, either a 5K or a 10K. It'll open up avenues like in summer, I'll be able to go and do a swim. I mean, I could do it whenever I want. It'd be very enjoyable doing it in the summer. Probably end up doing some in winter as well, yeah. But it's like, oh, I fancy going out and doing a bike ride, or I fancy going out and going for a swim. The skills that I have at the moment, I wake up and I think I fancy going for a run because I can run, and I've just I've not had the kit before to go and do cycles and stuff like that. So I think, you know what, let's go and do a nice bike ride. Let's go to the lakes and do a nice bike ride. I know it's not the same as doing a training for an Ironman like on a road bike, or a triathlon bike. It's not the same. But when you've done high level, well, let's say high level, like a very, very difficult swim, a very, very, very difficult long cycle, and a very long and difficult run, doing those things are not a chore. You can go and enjoy a run with your friends. You can go and enjoy swimming with your mates. You can go and enjoy cycling with whoever, wherever you want.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see it as it's going to open up those avenues for me as well, which is a weird one. But like I've said, I've alluded to, it's going to help improve skills for me and make me a better athlete in terms of being more aerobically fit and capable. It also opens up the avenue of my everyday life as well. Like I said, I've got some clients who like they ride their bikes to the gym and they go and do the guild wheel, which is like a bike ride around Preston. I've got athletes who train for running and they do 10Ks and half marathons, and I've got some athletes who swim. I'll be able to do all those things with them. And it's not just a case of me talking them through programming and going through strength work with them. It's a case of, you know what, we can do some stuff together, you know, and I guess it's some of the communal aspect as well in that respect.
I like that. There's a couple of things you
Obviously, the actual crossing the finish line, I'm sure the feelings and the emotions involved will be pretty fucking good. But I didn't want to say that because I felt like that's kind of obvious. Like, they might not be. I might cross the finish line and think, fuck me, that was shit. But you never know.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that you've mentioned there. So the first one is actually the kind of the repetitive nature of the training, the rhythmic process of repeating the same skill again and again and again, whether it's swimming length, whether it's running, just plodding one foot in front of the other, whether it's cycling and just getting that consistent turnover. There's something actually quite therapeutic, and you hit a point where when you do those things and you're doing them for long enough, you kind of just zone out and you go somewhere else completely different mentally. And the one thing that I would say from doing like something really long endurance previously is like you get to a point where it's, and this will sound really really wet, and for anyone who knows me, you'd be like, ah, it's not you, but there is something very very enlightening, very very spiritual that happens in part of that process where you kind of hit a bit of a barrier and you break through and you go, fucking hell. Like, and your perspective on everything changes. I'm just like, I'll just throw that out there. That's all it is. Your perspective on things change. The spiritual aspects of what you're doing kind of hits home a little bit. And again, your ability to focus, have the discipline to push through and be consistent with your actions and be determined enough to, whether it's cover the distance, finish it in the time frame, whatever it is, really will kind of shape you in some way. It can't not. And then the final bit, and I think this is really important for anyone that's doing any form of training and wanting to make progress, wanting to change, wanting to take on a big challenge or a big event, you have to see, like you mentioned, you have to see those obstacles and barriers as opportunities. And you also have to see not just the enjoyment of the event, but for it to really, really work, you have to see how it is then going to benefit other aspects of your life. And I think you've kind of got that balance there quite nicely. So, yeah, I just wanted to hit home those 2 points. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up for today?
No, I think that is everything. You now are all aware of what my season is going to look like. Everyone that listens to this can now help keep me accountable should I require it. I
Yeah,
appreciate you all.
and we'll definitely get Ben Aiken back on, and we will absolutely hold you kicking and screaming to account, whether you like it or not. We'll be reporting back on Chris's adventures as we go along. Are you going to be documenting this on your Instagram?
Yeah, so this is the other thing. I've not even touched on how it benefits my work and my coaching business. Well, I did a bit because obviously I said about my clients doing it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Are
it's
we
going
are
to
we
benefit.
going to see it on Netflix at some point? Are you going to be rivaling the hardest geezer for Iron Man through Africa or round? Imagine that, an Iron Man round Africa. Anyway,
No, I'm not going to be doing that. Ben
swimming
might do that. I'm not going to do
swimming with sharks. Um, that concludes our number 120 episode for today. Thank you very, very much for listening, ladies and gents. Brought to you by Dry Robe. Go and get your dry robe for your winter training. Perfect little addition to your kit bag. Loads of variety out there. And by the way, they also do them. I know you mentioned about running with Xena. They also do them for dogs, which I 100% will be using for my dog Axel, because once he's trained, once he's been out running and has got all cold and freezing, it's not particularly pleasant for a Doberman. So I'll be putting his little jacket on to warm him up afterwards, not during. Anyway, if you have any questions, if you want to quiz Chris on his training, head over to his Instagram. You can also ask me any questions that you like via mine. Shoot us any ideas or suggestions, anything you'd like to hear on future podcasts, any particular guests you want us to talk to. We have a couple lined up that will be coming up in the near future. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already. And if you do enjoy it, please leave us a review. 5-star review and a couple of nice comments would go an awfully long way. We really do appreciate that. So until next time, that is it from me. Lenko out.
Peace, love, and protein.